Welcome to Exercising Depression podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Claire, your host, and today we're going to be talking about the fact that my sessions of EMDR therapy are finally over. Yes, welcome back to the podcast and the YouTube channel. Now you may have noticed that the past two episodes of my Exercising Depression podcast weren't accompanied with a vlog, and that's purely because I had guests. The last two episodes I interviewed JP and Sean, and these were done via Skype, so actually recording a video with the interviews was logistically a bit of a nightmare, and honestly it's more of a privacy thing. The vlogs that I will be having accompanying with my podcast episodes are going to mainly be me, and that's not like a narcissistic thing. It's just, you know, I give full disclosure to have myself be recorded for videos. There will be things in the future where I interview other people in person, so maybe family members, friends, other people, and they may want to be on these vlogs, but unless they give their consent, people won't be in these vlogs. It'll just be me. But yeah, do go out and check out my last two episodes. The first one, like I said, was with my very good friend JP from the Depressed Not Dead podcast. We had a nice catch up, as it had been a while since we'd actually chatted. And the one after that, so that was last week's episode, was with Sean from the Mindfulness for Beginners podcast. We had a great chat about mindfulness, about his podcast and about mental health, and I really enjoyed it. We had a really good chat, and hopefully I'll have him on again. So I'm going to check out his podcast. If you go to the show notes from the last episode, all the information is there. Go and check it out. He's a really good guy. So a couple of housekeeping things before we start off. If you are aware and you're in the UK, we are in the midst of various storms. So if you're hearing high winds or anything, that's what that is. Also, my cat is in the room with me. I mentioned the first time I did a vlog, I think. This is where I used to record my vlogs for my job, and that included my cat. So she's very used to sort of being in this room with me. So she may make some noises. So yes, so this episode, my sessions of EMDR therapy have ended, and in a good way, as in I've come to the end of my therapy. I had my very last session a week or so ago. Now EMDR therapy, if you're not aware, stands for eye movement desensitization and reprogramming. It sounds very technical, and it kind of is. It uses your recollection of past traumas or past memories, troubling memories, and using eye movement or the triggering of each side of your brain using taps on your hands. It reprograms your brain to regard these as simply memories. Now, I don't really know all the technicalities of it because my memory is atrocious, and I have read up a lot on it, but I don't really know a lot of the technical side of it, what it really does, as it were. But so all I'm going to talk about is my own personal experience with EMDR. I couldn't do the eye movement thing because I found it too distracting when I was trying to remember things. So what I had with my therapists was I had my hands down and she would tap each hand, and this is the same with eye movement. It triggers two sides of the brain, and basically you are asked to recall past traumatic events or troubling memories or memories you have issues with, and recall your self-beliefs or how you're feeling about yourself during these times. So for example, I'm stupid, I'm weak, those kinds of things, and it reprograms your brain to basically desensitize yourself to these memories and these feelings and these emotions, and that makes it sound really negative, like it's deadening your nerves to it, but it's really not. It's so, like I said, I don't really know the full technicalities of it, but basically what it ended up doing for me was I have these troubling memories and I have these troubling thoughts about myself and self-beliefs, and now I can recall those events And those self-beliefs that I had, you know, I'm weak, I'm stupid, don't exist anymore. Like, I don't feel that anymore. But it's also removed the trauma for me. And it sounds so weird. But I can now think back to memories that were really troubling for me and really triggering for me, and feel basically nothing. And it's not like I've been deadened to it, like I said, it's basically I've been desensitized to it, that I've worked through it, basically. Sorry if it's going to be confusing, but I'm just trying to explain it in the best way I can. In no way an expert, but I've worked through these feelings and these memories and these thoughts and these reactions, and I've come out the other side, basically. So I had 8 months of intense EMDR therapy, because EMDR therapy is an intense therapy. You have to think about upsetting things, and you have to think about it a lot. So throughout the entire session, there's very little talking going on. So it's not a talking therapy. It's you're sat there thinking about these things, and then the therapist will interject every few minutes, you know, telling you, you know, what do you think about that feeling now? How do you feel about that? What are you experiencing now? And it sounds really repetitive and a bit ineffectual, but in actual fact, it is it's strangely effective, if you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, like I was really suspicious of it at first. I did a little bit of reading up of it, and I was just like, it just sounds a bit hocus pocus, a bit mumbo jumbo. You know, you sat there thinking of things, and then you just asked, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? And basically, your brain is meant to be reprogrammed just by eye movement or tapping. And I genuinely didn't expect very much from this therapy at all. I really wasn't expecting it to help me at all. And the first few sessions, I found it very difficult. And this is normal. Like, you are told by the therapist in EMDR therapy that, you know, it's going to be very traumatic, because you're re-remembering things that are very harmful to you. And I found it, especially sort of very much in the very beginning and midway through, you know, that I would be spending like 40 minutes or whatever thinking about things I actively don't think about because they're so troubling and harmful. And then maybe a couple of days afterwards, I'd be in a very bad place. It's kind of like a trauma hangover. Like you're recalling these things, and then, you know, you're fine at the day. I was a bit down in the daytime. Then a couple of days afterwards, or the day after, it would hit me really bad, like a hangover. You know, I'd feel the fallout of it, and I'd be very anxious, very upset by a lot of things. I find it very hard to get out of bed. I find it very hard to actually get any work done. I mean, I did, because, you know, I don't let things stop me working. And it was very, very hard for a really long time. Like I said, I had eight months of this, and it was hard. It was. And there would be sometimes, because of scheduling and stuff, it would go, I could be like 3 weeks and I wouldn't have another session. And, you know, in those 3 weeks I was, you know, get very anxious about going back to therapy, because each session was, I really didn't enjoy any of it. It was horrible, you know. And yeah, it was tough. It was really, really tough. But coming out of the other side of it, it's so hard to describe. It is so positive. I wrote it down on an Instagram post recently. My memory is really bad, so I have to go and read it because I can't actually remember it myself. But it was actually my last post, second to last post. So I posted up. So I went and had a beer afterwards, and I posted up a picture of my beer. I said, "Time to celebrate." An excellent beer. It was a dinger, which I love. An excellent beer to celebrate my last session of EMDR therapy. It's been a tough few months of intense therapy, but I've come out of it the other side, not only smiling a little bit more, but having worked through and conquered some personal demons, difficult thoughts, and dissipated some very negative self-beliefs, which is true, very, very true. I feel good. I know this bandage won't heal all my wounds, but the ones that I've worked on in these past 8 months, I have only small scars left of them. I know almost 100% that these issues will never harm me again, and there's an incredible amount of strength I feel from that knowledge. And that's exactly how I feel. Like, I've had these real sore points in my life, and memories and self-beliefs and personal demons that have plagued me for most of my adult life, and have led to some really, really dark times in my life. And I always just believed that these would be things that I've just always dealt with, I would always have to deal with, would always pop up every now and again and completely disable me, and I wouldn't be able to. I'd have a bad part. I'd have a bad period in my life where, you know, I'd have more sort of self-harming tendencies and some very bad thoughts about myself, and I've worked through them, and I never thought I would ever be able to do that. And like I said in that post, I can almost 100% believe that I won't relapse. Like, these things will not come back, and I really hope that that's true. Like, I can't tell you how much strength I feel from having gone through the past 8 months of working through some very, very difficult things for myself, and come out the other side having completely conquered them. And maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I don't think I am. This therapy is different from other therapies I've had, in that because it's so technical, as in it's reprogramming your brain, I imagine it's going to be very hard for me to undo all that hard work. And I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, about these things never having that such a bad and such a strong negative effect on me again. I might be wrong, and I'm not going to pretend like, you know, if I ever do have a relapse that it didn't happen. I'm never going to kid myself that, you know, I'm better, because I'm not. I'm not better, in air quotes, because I am still very much mentally ill. I have mental health issues. I have, you know, BPD. This is a diagnosis I will always have. But there are things in my life that don't trigger it anymore, trigger the bad things in my life anymore, and hopefully, hopefully they don't trigger these bad things anymore. And I just genuinely, I've said it before, I just genuinely never thought that I would ever come to a time in my life where these things wouldn't bother me anymore. For example, if I think back to one of the bad memories I have, I'm thinking of it now, and it's not nice, but all it is a memory. It's just like a film playing out in my head, and there's no emotional response to it, or physical response to it anymore, but in a healthy way, like not in a deadened way. Like I said before, it's not like I've become completely deadened to that. It's just that I've come through it, I've dealt with it, and it's something that, you know, I couldn't even think. I basically, before I started this therapy, didn't know if it was going to work, because I basically convinced myself and my brain that nothing had ever happened, that these memories were just not there. I just never thought of them. And they are there, and I can think about them, and it's fine. It's just like thinking back to a scene in a film or something, you know. And I'm not saying this will work for everybody. I'm not saying it's the miracle cure, and that it seems to have worked really well for me, and better than I thought it would. And like I said, I never thought I'd ever get to this point in my life where this would be my reality, where I can think about these things and be perfectly fine with it. You know, it's insane. I love it. It's brilliant. I really feel like I've turned a real huge corner in my life. Like, now I am in my early 30s. I'm making changes all over in my life. As you all know, I have been going to the gym for, you know, ever since last April. I've been lifting weights, I've been losing weight, I've become vegetarian. I have made some real changes in my life, positive ones, you know. I've lost quite a lot of weight. You know, this time last year I weighed quite a lot more than I do now. and then I have this as well, and it was just so nice knowing that I'm doing so good at the moment. I really feel that I'm going to be happier in my 30s than I ever was in my 20s. My 20s were always a real difficult phase in my life, decade, you know. And I'm really looking into the future really very positively. And like I said before, you know, I'm not cured, I'm not undepressed, I'm not, I hate saying normal, but you know, I still have mental health problems, and obviously I still currently do the podcast, and I'm not saying that this has cured everything, but this has been a huge deal for me, and I'm really hoping that it's something that will carry on. I would honestly really highly recommend EMDR therapy just for people, especially if they have past traumas or past bad experiences, you know, difficult times in their life, that have definitely, if they hold some real negative self-beliefs about yourself that are very deep-rooted, because these ones for me were very deep-rooted, and they basically, that's how I thought about myself, and you know, I still have self-esteem issues, I always will, I still have anxiety, I always will, I don't almost guarantee it, depression, always, BPD, always, you know, disordered eating, I'm working on my disordered eating, it's hard, but I have the help of my family and my husband, so yeah, I think everyone should go to therapy anyway, because I think it's just as good to look after your mental health as it is your physical health. That's the whole point of this podcast, is to get people talking about mental health, because as great as we're doing at the moment, with talking more and more about mental health, the stigma is still there. You just need to look at the news recently about people committing suicide, you know, people in the public eye committing suicide. You know, that a lot of people are talking about it, which is fantastic to begin with, but there are a lot of people talking about it in a bad way as well, you know, calling suicide selfish, calling it cowardly, calling it, you know, all these things under the sun. And the fact is, mental illness kills so many people, and it's the stigma around this that is the big issue when it comes to mental health, and it may even be why things like the NHS over here in the mental health sector are so underfunded, because people don't want to talk about it. People don't talk about how important mental health is, and it's just as important as physical health. It really, really is. And again, like I said, that's the reason I started this podcast, was just to talk about mental health more, because it needs to be talked about more. It needs to be part of people's conversations, to lift the stigma so that people don't feel ashamed of struggling or having certain diagnoses, or just having a bad part in their life, you know, so they can get the help. So yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent a bit there, sorry. But I'm very passionate about it, and it's something I really, really care about. And yeah, so therapy. I'm done with therapy for now. Who knows if I'll ever go back to therapy? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But I had such a positive outcome with EMDR therapy. That's all I can really say. At the moment, I'm quite happy. I have quite bad anxiety at the moment, but that's for various other things. What else is new with me? I don't know if it's going to be a bit premature, I'm not sure, but I have a job interview lined up. I applied for a part-time job on top of my vlogging, which is also part-time. Just an opportunistic thing, really. It came up, I thought, hey, I could do that. I applied for this job, and I got an interview, which is in 2 weeks today actually. I'm not going to detail about it until maybe after the interview, because I don't really want to jinx it or, you know, give away any sort of information. Maybe I shouldn't. But I'm quite excited by that. My anxiety levels are huge in regards to that, because I have not actually had a job interview for a really long time. But yeah, I will fill you all in on that. My camera has decided to tell me that the battery is going, so I'm going to have to go now, I'm afraid. So thank you for listening and watching. This is the Exercise and Depression podcast and YouTube channel. You can get in contact with me via email, via Twitter, via social media. And I'll link all of those in the description box below of both the YouTube channel and the podcast. Yes, thank you for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.